Oh, that's nice. Okay. So what we'll do then is we'll start off with a question, and then hopefully that'll sort of get the conversation rolling. So does anybody have a pressing question they want to jump in and start?
Guys, I'll introduce myself. I'm Natasha. I'm based in Northern Ireland, and I've only just very recently started my laser journey, Mike. I was conversing with you this morning. I'm going to come and do the 2-day training in January. So I'll probably sound a bit clueless compared to everyone else on here today, but I am so keen to educate myself on the treatments that I'm offering to clients. I'm never just happy to just know the basics of anything. So I really am keen to learn. So I probably will be asking loads of stupid questions, but for me, it's confidence building at this stage so that I'm confident that the services that I'm offering, I'm well educated and well versed. More so if we run into any issues with clients. I've had a few. Thankfully nothing too major, but it does knock your confidence when you're starting out on your journey. So again, that's part of the reason why I'm on the Zoom today. So I'd probably learn from the rest of you. I probably won't be able to input an awful lot, so apologies for that.
There's no such thing as a stupid question, just stupid answers. So don't worry about asking something, because what I've tended to find through the years is that someone will ask a question and then I can see them all saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, I was wondering that too," but we're just a little bit scared to ask because they thought it was a bit silly. So don't
Yeah.
feel like your question is silly, because there's no such thing. All right.
Okay, thank you.
My answer might be completely bonkers, so I'd be careful about that. So who'd like to kickstart out the first question then? Somebody. Claire, go on, Claire. You start. That's a way to make a cup of tea.
Sorry, mine was on mute. I'm being quiet because I can hardly speak, if I'm being honest. I'm full of a cold. Yeah, I've just joined really just to see what you've got. I've joined some of your other Zoom meetings as well. I don't have anything pressing that I need to ask. I'm just interested to listen to what you've got to say, to be honest.
Okay, well, in that case, I'll fire a question, right? So
Can I fire one, Mike, then, if no one else is going to?
yes.
So my concern is I was trained probably last December, but because in Northern Ireland we have, Mike, you would be aware of this, RQIA registration to go through, which is quite lengthy and quite an expensive process. So I've only really started laser since June, July time this year. So starting off, I'm in a WhatsApp group. Maybe some of the other ladies are actually on here today as well. I use the Skincare BioCare One machine. And I think just with the training, probably with me, confidence around being able to adjust parameters with confidence, without worrying about burning people and pre and post cooling. So really the things that I'm focusing on would be hair and tattoo removal. So it's kind of like the settings. Hair removal I've done more of. Tattoo removal I've started to do and using myself as a guinea pig as well. So I would be keen to learn quite a bit more about sort of the parameters and things for tattoo removal and effective hair removal.
Right. Okay. That's quite a lot of information.
Sorry.
Probably more than we can cover today.
Yeah.
Put you point in the right direction.
Mhm.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do then is I'll just kind of give you a quick summary as to what this is all about, right? Because I think you're all doing hair removal, I think, from what I understand. And I think most of you are using diode lasers. And them correctly. So the way to think about this, the way to think about laser hair removal or IPL, doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is you're trying to deliberately burn somebody's hair. Okay, that's what your job is. So you're trying to cook all the stem cells around a follicle so that they completely break down or denature, as we say, and then that follicle cannot grow back. So the principle is quite simple, actually. If you can cook all the stem cells around particular follicles, then they're dead. They just can't come back. The trick of that is to be able to do that without damaging all the surrounding tissues in the skin, in the dermis in particular. So that's the hard part. Okay, destroying hair follicles is actually quite simple. You could do it with a soldering iron if you wanted to. Not that I recommend you do, but you could. So the way to think about this is you are deliberately trying to burn somebody's hair follicles. That's what you're deliberately trying to do. So you must also mitigate against collateral damage around the hair follicles that we don't want to damage. And that is the tricky part of this whole process. This is where the skin cooling becomes so critical. And I have to say that when I'm training people, I tell them that the two most important parameters when you're looking at hair removal are the fluence, because it's the fluence that determines how hot everything's going to get in the skin, and the cooling, because that's what does the protection to stop unwanted damage. So you've got to choose the correct fluence to make sure that you can damage all the germ cells in the follicles that you're targeting. And that fluence depends on, first of all, the hair color. So the hair's got to be reasonably dark, because otherwise you're just not going to get anywhere. But more importantly, it depends on the depth. So if you've got a deep follicle, like for example, in the underarms of bikini, those ones can be down to 5 millimeters deep, which is really quite deep in the skin. So if you're targeting those sorts of follicles, you've got to use a higher fluence to get enough energy down there. If you don't do that, what will happen is you cook some of the germ cells, and some of them will survive, and the hairs grow back finer. And I'm sure you've all probably seen that. So when somebody says to me, that they've been doing treatments, oh, I've done 6, 7, 8 treatments on this person, and the hair's all coming back fine, thin, whatever. My first thought is you're not applying enough fluence. It's as simple as that. So you've got to make sure that you fire in enough energy in the fluence, otherwise it just will not work. But at the same time, because you are deliberately burning these constituents in the skin, then you also mitigate to prevent damage by using cooling. And what I recommend is that you pre-cool, you cool during the treatment, and you cool after the treatment. So Jennifer just asked me, should the fluence be increased in each session? No, this is just nonsense. And I don't know who came up with this idea. This is a relatively new thing. It's only the last few years that I've started seeing this. Start low and increase. No, absolutely. Why would anyone do that? It's not as if you're targeting deeper and deeper follicles each time they come back. You're targeting the same follicles, right? So the follicles, if you treat an area, let's say you're doing underarm or bikini, they're the deepest ones. Some of those follicles will be relatively near the surface, but a lot of them will be quite deep. So to get a good result, you want to make sure you're killing all of them. Now, if you get enough fluence to kill the deep follicles, then you'll definitely kill the shallow follicles, without a doubt. But if you only got enough to kill the shallow follicles, then you can quite easily leave the deeper follicles intact, and they will grow back with finer hairs. All right. So this idea of starting low and increasing in the comeback is just a nonsense. It really is. Honestly, God, I wish I knew who came up with that. I'd give them a good kick, because it's just complete nonsense. So don't do that. Now, in my book on hair, I'm just trying to find it here in the other machine. Here we go. What I did was I actually calculated what the minimum fluences we need to make sure you can destroy the follicles, and that calculation, or those calculations are based on the depth of these follicles. So what I found for diode lasers was that for the upper lip area, you don't really need much more than about 12 joules per square centimeter. That should be enough to kill pretty much all the hairs, assuming your clients are let's say normal, so there's no underlying problems with hormones or anything like that. When you go to the chin, though, you actually need nearly twice as much energy. because, or Fluence rather, because the chin hairs can be significantly deeper than the upper lip hairs, twice as deep. So for the chin, I recommend starting about 21 joules per square centimeter. For the armpits and for the legs, I recommend starting about 24 joules per square centimeter. And then for the bikini, I recommend starting about 28 joules per square centimeter. Now, what those numbers will do is hopefully they'll make sure that you can kill all the follicles down to the deepest ones. So everything all the way down there should be properly cooked. And they shouldn't be able to grow back. So if you've got somebody that's starting out new and you're doing the bikini hair, then don't start, 15 or 20. That's no good, because they will come back with fine hairs, and you'll just need to do more treatments, and then you might not actually kill them all because you're not firing enough energy. So start at 28. Now that sounds like quite a lot in some systems. It depends on which kind of laser you've got. Some lasers that's a lot, some it's not so much. So what you got to do is say, well, okay, if I'm using quite a high fluence here, then I need to use a lot of cooling. And what I discovered just a few weeks ago, actually, is that you cannot overcool hair, which was quite surprising. I'd always taught people and said you apply some pre-cooling for a few seconds, maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then hit the hair with the laser and then put some cooling on afterwards. And then I realized that it doesn't actually matter how long you pre-cool, because the hair is always going to absorb a lot more energy than the skin, always. So it means you can pre-cool for 5, 10 minutes if you wanted to with ice packs or whatever you prefer, and that will not have a negative impact on the hair treatments. Now, I just posted up well, just the other day there on Friday, I think it was, describing this, because let me just call something. I'm going to stick it up in the chat here so you can all see. Why is hair removal painful? Well, interestingly, it's not really to do with the hair, which is kind of a surprise. When you're firing laser or IPL energy at the skin, a significant amount of that energy can be absorbed in the epidermis, because you can have quite a lot of melanin in the epidermis, especially in darker skin types. So a big chunk of that energy, it hits that epidermal melanin first, and a chunk of it will be absorbed in that melanin, because this melanin is what you're targeting in the hair, so it will be absorbed in the epidermis as well. And the problem is that if there's a lot of melanin, so say you're talking like Fitzpatrick 4, 5, and 6 for sure, then that will absorb a lot of the incoming energy. That makes it very hot. That is where the pain comes from, not from the hair. It comes from the epidermal melanin, because it absorbs significant amounts of energy, and that heat energy then conducts into the skin where all the pain sensors are. So what you got to do is you've got to say, right, okay, this person's got quite dark skin. That means I know they're going to the skin's going to get very hot when I fire the laser, so I've got to pre-cool the skin. Because if you can take down the temperature of the epidermis and the pain nerves, then it becomes a lot more comfortable. You can reduce the temperature of the pain nerves by 10, 15, 20 degrees, then it takes a lot more energy to bring them up to the pain threshold, pain level. So your skin, your dermis is normally sitting around about 37 degrees. That's your normal skin temperature, okay? Your pain receptors kick in at 45 degrees. So that means there's only an 8-degree difference between your skin, normal skin temperature, and the pain nerves kicking in. 8 degrees is not a lot. And it doesn't take much energy to reach that 45 degrees. It really doesn't. So what you want to do is take down the temperature of the upper skin down from 37 to, say, I don't know, 25, 26, or something like that, a good 10, 12 degrees lower, or even lower than that, maybe down to 20 degrees perhaps, who knows. And then if you do that, then it means that when you fire the energy into the skin, your starting point is no longer 37, it's now down at 20 or 25, whatever. And then the chances of triggering the pain receptors is smaller. So the treatment becomes much more comfortable. Plus, you can use higher fluences in those areas where you've got deeper. So if you're doing things like the bikini line and underarms, where you have to use higher fluences to target the deep follicles, then you must apply more pre-cooling. Okay, that will make it much more tolerable and much lower chance of damaging the epidermis. I also recommend that you do a lot of post-cooling as well, because when you're firing in this energy into the skin, around about 90% of it is not what we want, which is pretty high number, but that's the reality. Most of the energy is actually flying around inside the dermis and doesn't interact with the hair follicles at all, because the density of hair follicles is not that great in most situations. So you've got about 90% of the light energy just flying around in the dermis looking to get something. So you've got to mitigate against that too, using post-cooling afterwards to make sure you draw all that energy out of the skin. If you leave it in the skin, it will just start to cook something, usually collagen. Right? So my recommendation is that you use higher fluences to target deeper follicles, but you must also then use much more cooling. I prefer ice packs. I use the cool pack ice packs, and I stick them in the freezer so they're nice and cold. They stay cold for a longer time. And you put them on the skin for a few minutes beforehand, do the treatment, and then put them on the skin again afterwards, and let it all cool down so that there's much less damage. That's basically how this works. And you know what? It doesn't matter which machine you use, whether it's a diode or an Alexandrite or an IPL system. It doesn't matter. Now, Claire has posted up a question. EW3 diode settings are different to most other machine settings. 20 joules isn't much for this machine. Why is this? And do you know what equates to the settings that you recommend in this machine? Yes, this is a pain in the arse, frankly. This makes my life difficult, I got to say. And it's not just AW3, it's all the diode systems. The problem is that diode lasers are they're a bit different to other systems. What you tend to find is that you can have a diode laser that might be a 1,000 watt system, or it might be a 3,500, or it might be 5,000 watts. And the watts, that's the power. So that determines how quickly the energy is being delivered. So what it means is that these numbers are no longer the same, because I've got to be thinking, just looking at it in my book here. If you have a 2,000 watt machine, 2,000 watt diode laser, and you set it for 20 joules per square centimeter, then even though if you set the same fluence in a 5,000 watt machine, it's not the same, because the 5,000 watt machine will deliver that 20 joules per square centimeter much faster than the 2,000 watt machine, right? Because 5,000 watts means that machine can deliver 5,000 joules every second. So if you think about it, a 5,000 watt machine is basically 2.5 times faster than a 2,000 watt machine, because it can only deliver 2,000 joules every second. So what this means is, if you're firing in a fluence of 20 joules per square centimeter, then the low powered machines, the 2,000 watt machines, will take a longer time to deliver that fluence compared to the high powered machines, the 5,000 watt machines. And that timing can be very important, because if it's taking too long, you think of it this way: if you're delivering the energy over a long time, then you just don't get the same temperature rise in the skin, because you're giving the heat energy lots of time to dissipate, just conduct away. So it can be quite difficult to get the same sort of temperatures. And this is actually a real pain, because it means then that you don't really compare a high power machine with a low power machine in the same way. They're kind of different. it does make it trickier, I have to say. The result seems to be, certainly from what I'm hearing back from all you guys on the forum, the result seems to be that you're much happier using the high powered machines, the 3,500 watt. I think Lithium Pros is a 3,500, and some of you got a 5,000 watt machine as well. But you seem to be getting better results, and I think that's probably because you're delivering the right fluence in a much shorter time compared to the low powered machines, which takes much longer. Right, so I think that's probably why you're doing that. But I have to say, you can use the low powered machines, the 1,000 watt, 2,000 watt, and still get good results. You can. You just need to use a higher fluence. All right. So this is a bit like a juggling act. You're kind of juggling things like fluence and pulse width and power and all these things, and it's confusing. It's confusing for me, and I'm a bloody physicist. I'm supposed to know all this stuff. So I'm sure you guys are finding it confusing as well. So what the way to think of it is, if you've got a low powered machine, like a 1,000 or 2,000 watt laser, then you will likely need to use higher fluences. So instead of using 20, you might need to use 25 joules per square centimeter. Okay, I think that's probably the easiest way to think about it. Natasha's written, I use BioCare 1, just had the IPL handset for hair removal present. I feel like online IPL is bashed as ineffective. Yeah, it is, yeah. Surely using the right settings, being educated. Yeah, absolutely, Natasha. You're absolutely right. IPL does get constant bashing online, and the reality is IPL is just as good as diodes or YAGs or alexandrites, but it's trickier to use. It definitely is harder to use, and it's got a steeper learning curve certainly compared to diodes. Quite straightforward. IPL not so straightforward. So I think what's happened through the years, and this is not recent, this has been going for a long time, people have been buying IPLs, not getting proper training, and then not getting good results, and then they blame the technology, which is a bit of a shame, because I like IPL. I've been using it for 20 odd years, and I do like it. And I do know you can get good results, but I also know that most people are not using it correctly. So yeah, if you use the correct parameters, you will get good results. Jennifer, so does that mean a lower wattage machine would take longer to deliver the treatment? I mean, no, not necessarily. No, what it means is that a lower wattage, low power machine will use longer pulses. So if you have let's say you set up a high power machine and you set it for like I don't know, 20 milliseconds, for example, then to get the same effect from a low power machine, it may have to deliver that over 40 milliseconds. Now, you might say, so what? Who cares? Well, the problem with that is that a 40 millisecond pulse gives the heat more time to spread out. So you don't get the same temperature rises. And if you don't get the right temperature rise, you don't get enough temperature rise, then you will not get good results. So that's why I'm saying for a low power machine, low wattage, the way to compensate is to use a higher fluence compared to the high power machines. That should take care of the problem. Haley saying, I have BioCare 1 too, I have IPL and YAG, I bet it's just as good. Yes, exactly. You just need to know how to use it properly. Do you know what I did during lockdown when I was bored and I couldn't work? I started doing lots of modelling. You didn't know I was a model, did you? I'm a model. I'm a well, from Glasgow actually, but never mind. So I did a lot of modelling, on computer modelling, sadly. You know, my modelling days are behind me. And I started looking at all these things, different machines, and started thinking, well, okay, so what is the difference between all these? What's, you know, why is this machine better than that machine, which is better than these machines or whatever? And you know what I discovered? Quite interesting, actually. Coffee. They are all pretty much the same. That's the bottom line. All right. If you've got enough power coming out of these machines and the correct wavelengths, then they're all pretty much the same. And I remember doing a wee test in my model, and I thought, can I get exactly the same what we call temperature time distribution in the hair follicle from 4 different machines? And the answer is yes, it did. So by as who was it? Was it Natasha said, but manipulating? Sorry, it was Haley. But manipulating the machine. Yes, if you manipulate your technology correctly, you can get exactly the same results as anyone else using other technologies. That's the bottom line. The problem is most people don't really understand how to do that. That's the difficulty out there. Natasha said fab. That's a very 60s word. Maybe it's a Northern word. Down to user error. Yes, Jennifer. It's actually I wouldn't necessarily say it was user error. I would say it's user lack of understanding and lack of training. I got to say, training out there is abysmal. I'd say about 75–80% of my training clients have all been previously trained by someone else or a company or whatever. They've done these VT, CT, level 4, level 5 things, and they're clueless. And I just say to them, why are you coming to me if you've done all this? Because I don't know what I'm doing, is usually the answer. I don't understand what I'm doing. I don't understand how to change this, and I don't know what that means even. And that just tells me that the training out there is pretty awful in a lot of cases. I'm actually planning to start a new thing next year. I'm going to start a new program called Train the Trainers. And I'm going to contact these companies and say, hey, look, you guys are awful. Come here, let me train you properly so that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. And at least then you guys, hopefully, will then get the proper training from the suppliers and manufacturers. It's Haley, come on, calm down. Yes. Yeah, do you know what? That's a good point, though. You say they set you safe parameters, which don't get good results. Unfortunately, a lot of manufacturers do this. Probably, actually, they probably all do this. They give you a bunch of numbers in their manuals, which are useless. They're just hopeless. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to ensure that you don't injure or damage somebody so they don't get sued. That's what they're doing. However, the problem you got is that you don't get good results because the parameters they're giving you are just no good. I'm guessing so they are. Hang on. They're insured in case we make mistakes, cover their asses. Yes, and you know, and that's the problem, that they're covering their derrieres, as we say in Scotland. But that's not good for you, because if you can't get good results, then that ruins your reputation and your business. What they should be doing is training you properly in the first place. That's what they should be doing, but they're not. And unfortunately, a lot of these companies don't seem to understand that, which is dear me. Anyway, so Natasha, I think the fact that we're on your mic shows that we want to learn one of the basics. We're all passionate. Yeah. Well, hopefully, give good results. Oh, do you know what? Let me tell you something. Actually, do you know what? That's quite interesting. One of my clients just wrote to me the other day there, and do you know what? I'm not malicious. Lauren, and I trained Lauren. I think it was last year. So she wrote to me and she said, business is going well. The laser is working fab on all body areas, but most of my ladies are needing extra sessions on their faces. Most people are done underarms and legs at 4 to 5 sessions. That's pretty good. But everyone needs 8 sessions for their facial hair. I'm worried I'm timing the growth cycles incorrectly. That, in fact, is what she did when I quizzed her. She was doing facial treatments every 4, 5, and then 6 weeks. And that's too short a time, because you need to wait for the follicles to come back into anagen. Now, the way to do that, this is another, at such a great time during lockdown, I was sitting here modelling away to my heart's content. I built a model looking at the growth cycles of follicles, because people kept asking me, what's the best time between treatments? And I just didn't know. So I built a model, and in actual fact, it turns out it's quite simple, curiously. The way it works is, if you think about this, the first time a client comes to you, then they will present to you probably the maximum number of anagen follicles ever. Right? They're never going to have the same number again. So because they've not had any previous treatments, okay? So the first time they come to you is the best time, because you're going to have as many anagens as they can give you. You zap those, and hopefully kill. In reality, you'll kill about 50 to 60% of them. Most people don't go more than 60%. And then what you got to do is you got to wait until the maximum number of anagen follicles are presented again. Right? Now, that depends on the growth cycle. And of course, the growth cycle varies enormously across the body. So on the face, let me just call this up actually, because I can never remember these numbers. Fluences and those and trainings and such. In here somewhere. I was on the page with fluences, so this is after. So what you have to do is say to yourself, right, look, it's going to take a bit of time. Oh, here we go. A bit of time for your follicles to all, not all, but for the maximum number to come back into anagen. And that depends on the area, location on the body. So what I found was, bumpty, 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 bum. Oh my God, I've got all this stuff here. I'm gonna have to dig a sack. I can't see it. What I found was that 4 weeks is usually not enough for any body area, because what happens is at 4 weeks, only a certain percentage of the follicles are back in anagen. If you leave 6 weeks, that percentage will be higher. If you leave 8 weeks, it'll be higher again, right? So if you treat someone every 4 weeks, doesn't matter which body area, you're going to hit a certain number of anagen follicles, which means you're going to need more treatments overall. Right? That's the bottom line. So if you have a short interval between treatments, like 4 weeks, for example, you just need more treatments compared to having a longer interval, say 8 weeks. If you leave 8 weeks between treatments in any body area, then you're going to need fewer treatments overall. That is how it works. The problem is, it's very difficult to predict on individuals, because obviously everybody's different, and there's all sorts of factors that can affect it. But the bottom line is, if you say to somebody, 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, something like that, then they will need fewer sessions. So there's Natasha saying, I was taught 6 weeks between sessions 1 and 2, and then 2 to 3, then 8 weeks, sessions 3 to 4. Do you know what? That's as good as any other regime, honestly, because at 6 weeks, so you'll not get quite as many follicles as at 8 weeks. Now, the other thing you have to remember, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing, when they come to you the first time for the first treatments, you get the maximum number of follicles in anagen. So you zap that, and you might kill 50 to 60%. When they come back the next time, there is going to be fewer follicles in anagen, because you've killed a big chunk of it already. So when they come back the next time, there should be fewer hairs. All right? And you kill hopefully 50 to 60% of those. And then they come back the next time, there's going to be even fewer. So it's a case of diminishing returns. Every time they come back, there are fewer and fewer and fewer anagen follicles. Now, do remember that you'll also see hairs which are in catagen and telogen, and your treatment has no effect on those. So this is a bit disconcerting, because somebody can come back and they look quite hairy, and you think, oh my God, nothing's worked. That's not true, because what you're seeing is a combination of anagen, catagen, and telogen. And the anagen hairs, some of those are going to be new hairs that were asleep the previous time, and some of them could be hairs that you didn't kill properly the first time round. So it's a real kind of mishmash. When they come back after a treatment, it's very difficult to know precisely what you're looking at. It's almost impossible, actually. All right. So what you're going to tell your clients is say, look, this treatment can kill about 50 to 60% each time. If you wait a longer time period between now and the next treatment, then more of your follicles will be in anagen and will kill 50 to 60% that time. And then the same for the third, the fourth, and fifth treatments. So the fact that this is what I taught Lauren. That's what I taught her a year or so ago. And she's saying that she's getting rid of underarms and legs in 4 to 5 sessions. That's pretty good. I've got to say that's quicker than most people out there. And the reason she's needing 8 sessions on the face is because she's treating them too rapidly. She needs to wait a little bit longer to let more anagen come through. But you know what? It's not that important because, as I understand it, most clients out there expect to be back about 6, 7, 8 times. That seems to be the kind of the industry norm there. So if you say to them, yeah, you could be looking at about 8 or 9 sessions overall, then I don't think anyone would really balk at that. They say, yeah, okay, that's fine, that's fine. Natasha saying to allow regrowth that's slowed down to be more apart. To allow regrowth that's slowed down. Do you know what? I don't know about this slowing down of growth. I've not seen anything in the research papers that suggest that. I think that actually is a little bit of a myth out there that you slow down the growth. I suspect what happens is not so much you're slowing it down, but what you're doing is you could be stunning the follicles, and that might have an effect on the timing. But I've not seen any actual evidence of that. It's quite tricky to properly study that. So that's probably why no one's done it yet. And then Haley says, yes, same. It may explain why my facial implants are so unsuccessful. I think I may tell them to wait 5 to 6 weeks now and see. I'd suggest them, leave 6 weeks. Right now, the thing is, like I said before, chin hair can be about twice as deep as upper lip hair, so the chins need more energy now. And I'm pretty sure most people use the same energy across the whole face, and that's actually not a good idea. You need to consider that the hair depths are going to be different in different parts of the face, which is a real bugger, but unfortunately that's the reality. Now, what you could do is say, right, okay, let's assume that they're all deep. All right, so that means you need to use a high fluence, let's say 27, 28 joules per square centimeter. So you could do that on the face, but just make sure you do lots and lots of cooling pre and post, and then they'll be fine. Haley says, I have a client having a Brazilian, and her hair first session was amazing, and the third session treatment of 6 days. Yeah, just say that to her. For bikini, do you know, I'm still trying to find this timing. I put it somewhere, but I can't find it at the minute. The bikini hair, I think, is quite slow, if I remember correctly. So, because what you have to consider is not only the growth rate, how quickly or how slowly it's going, but also the percentage. Right, so here we go. This right. So bikini, at any one time, 70% of bikini hairs are intelligent, so they're sitting doing nothing. Only 30% are in the anagen phase. The anagen phase lasts for about 16 weeks, and the intelligent phase lasts for about 12 weeks. So there you go. That means most of the hair you're treating on the bikini, and in fact also in the armpits, it's the same actually, the same sorts of numbers. Most of the hair you're treating in those areas are intelligent or catagen, so they will not respond. So if you've only got about 30% of the hairs in anagen, and you can only kill about 50 to 60% of those, then that means you're only really killing about 15 to 18% of all the hairs in that area, right? So that tells you, well, if you're only killing 15%, then you're going to need what, 7, 8 treatments definitely to kill them all. And the timings, 12 weeks of anagen, 16 weeks of anagen, 12 weeks of telogen. But of course, they're all mixed up. Some the timings are all over the place, so you can never be sure quite which ones are an anagen or about to go into anagen, and which ones have just started to go to telogen. when I did this model last year, and I was treating, well, computer treating, you could say, these hairs in the model. What I discovered was quite interesting. There are some treatments you do when you're having virtually zero effect, right? Because once you've done about usually about 4 or 5 sessions, then the number of hairs that are going into anagen can be quite small by that time. And you could quite easily be treating somebody right in the middle of the telogen phase when most of the hairs are intelligent. So that treatment is going to have very little effect. Problem is, you just can't tell. It's very, very difficult. I was talking to an American doctor in Edinburgh back in May, and he's got an interesting approach. He says that he tells his patients, he says, right, look, we'll do the first 2 or 3 treatments every 8 weeks or whatever. And he says, and then I will not do any more treatments until you can see the hair growing back. And then you know they're in anagen because you can see them, right? So I think what he does is he gets them to shave, because shaved hairs, if they go into anagen, then you'll see it quite clearly. You will see some telogen hairs after the shave, but maybe not quite as much as anagen. So it does get tricky after the first 2 or 3 sessions. It becomes really tricky to figure out what is actually going on. All right, and you kind of have to remember that some of the hairs you're seeing are new growth. Some of them are regrowth from the previous anagen hairs that you didn't kill, and some of them are telogen or catagen hairs. So it is a little bit tricky, but definitely the longer you leave between treatments, the fewer sessions you need overall. There. That's it in a nutshell. Easy. So to put it in a nutshell, actually, you need the fluence, sufficiently high fluence, to kill the follicles to the right depths. Okay. You need the cooling before, during, and after to make sure you don't destroy everything else. And you need the timing, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, to make sure that you are killing the maximum number of anagen follicles every time they come back. That's it pretty much in a nutshell. Those 3 things: fluence, timings, and cooling. In a nutshell. I'm going to get a t-shirt made up. Laser hair removal, piece of cake. Fluence, cooling, timings. Now that applies, those 3 things apply regardless of the technology. Doesn't matter what your technology is. Because what I also found is that if you're changing from, let's say you go from diode to IPL, or from YAG to alexandrite, all that really does is changes the fluence. That's really the biggest difference. The other differences are fairly minimal. It's fluence is important. Now, ladies, I gotta go pee. So talk amongst yourselves. I've been drinking lots of coffee this morning because I'm loaded with a cold. So talk amongst yourselves while I go pee. Okay. Right. Oh, to pee or not to pee? That is the question. Well, I did. It is a nobler thing to pee than to wet your true sort of soul. Right, so oh, I see you're chatting by chat. Oh my God, you young people. We used to use speaking in the olden days. Talking. Right, so Claire says, I find clients get results, but around the fourth, fifth session, they don't see much of a difference. Yes, and that's because every time they come back, you're treating fewer and fewer and fewer follicles because there's just fewer left. So you do see less and less every time they come back. You kind of have to explain that to them, all right? Natasha's away, cheerio. You use cool packs. Yeah, cool packs are great. Clients hate them. Who cares what the clients hate? You know, you do them anyway. They hate the pain more, so use them. Cool packs. As for, yeah, do you know what? I actually recommend that you stick them in a freezer and then you take them out about maybe 15, 20 minutes before the client comes in, so they begin to melt. Your ideal situation is to have a sort of a crunchy cool pack. So it's got ice particles as well as water, all right? And that's your best best bet, best cooling. You wrap them in a towel. Yep, that's good. Yeah, and what I recommend you do is, Jennifer saying use the large ones for the thighs. What I recommend you do is when you treat an area, you zap the area, maybe I don't know 10 square centimeters, and then put a cool pack on before you start the next area, because you want to start cooling as soon as. Don't leave it till the end of the treatment because then it's too late. The tissue damage will be done. Tip picked up. Okay, see you January. It's Natasha's away. Natasha's coming up to Glasgow for our masterclass. You're all welcome. And if you sign up for it and pay before the end of November, then you get £100 off. Hey. One leg at a time. Yeah, how do you do two legs at the same time? That's going to be tricky. There's no reason why you can't do both legs, but you need a you know, a fair number of cool packs just to be keep nice and cold. I've got a client in Glasgow who uses IPL, and he uses typically about 42 joules per square centimeter all the time. Very high fluence. Gets great results all the time. But he puts cool packs on his clients for about 10 minutes after the treatment, and he just lets them lie there and basically sucks all the heat out of them. And he says he'll not let them leave until the skin feels cold, and then he lets them go. And that's a good way to do it, because by that point, all the excess heat energy has disappeared, and it can't damage them. So I do recommend that. Leave it for 10 minutes afterwards. They might complain they're getting a bit cold. So what? They would much rather be cold than burnt. Yeah, I think. And definitely do both legs, Jennifer, because they don't like having one hairy leg and one baldy leg. Right, you can talk now, ladies. This is weird. I feel like I'm in a vacuum here. You can talk. You don't have to type chat all the time, please. I'm feeling a bit lonely out here. Are we done? Anyone else got a query, question? Winter morning, I experience hotter. Yeah, do you know, you have to remember that the skin thickness changes across the body. So some areas will be quite thin, some is quite thick, and you will feel a difference for sure. You'll get, you know, more or less temperature, and you'll get more or less conduction as well. So it does make a difference, yes. Kelly's daughter's not well, oh dear. But listen, Kelly, off you go and sort it out, okay? This is being recorded, so I'm going to post this up when we're finished, and then you can all jump in later on. Okay, I think we're done here for the moment. Well, I hope that gives you some insight. Please do go to my blog. I'm going to just put it up here. It's at mikemurphyblog.com if you haven't seen it already. I've got all sorts of posts in there. And what to do at the top of it, if you go into it, at the top of it, there's a wee search box just under the dermalase sign. If you just type in there anything about follicles or IPLs or diodes or whatever, you'll find all the posts that I've written about that. But definitely, please do go and see my most recent post that I posted up on the 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Saturday. Why is hair removal painful? Because most people don't really understand why it's painful. They assume it's to do with the hair, and in fact, it's not. All right. Thank you, Kelly. You're most welcome to buy the books or book. You don't need to buy them all. Right. And on that, I'm going to go and leave. Nice.
Thanks, Mike.
Pardon?
I said thank you.
Welcome. Nice seeing you all here. Well, didn't see anybody right now, but nice seeing names of them. Okay, so y'all have a good day, okay? And hopefully speak to you all soon.
Cheers. Thank you.